Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, today on this Walking with Christ podcast, we're going to talk about experiences. And there are a lot of different experiences many of you have had throughout life. And those experiences can tell you so much. Now, I know I did a podcast a while back about lessons learned. And we're not going to get into everything that podcast included, but if you are interested, if you are wanting to focus in more on lessons learned, then I encourage you to check that podcast out, and maybe a couple others, if not many others, that have been put out as well. Now, with experiences, those can be things that you can learn a lot from as well. And if you have a lot of experiences in life, to me, it's not so much one of those things. Yeah, I got a lot of experience with this, that, and the fourth. And that, in a sense, tells you everything you need to know. No, it doesn't. Because there are a lot of things about those experiences that come into play. When you had those experiences, how did you operate? How did you conduct yourself? If there was room for improvement, did you go down that path and grow in ways that were possible? See, there are a lot of people who have experiences and operate in those spaces not too much different than the first time they encountered those experiences. And that is a presence of mind, a presence of how a person shows up, to where there may be limited, if not complete, unwillingness to grow and improve upon oneself. And having the willingness to improve upon yourself is important. Some people operate in spaces where they, like if you think about work situations, to where, they may be specialized in this one area, and that's one specialty, maybe while they're brought into a different particular space. But there's not that many places or spaces, more so, that are like that. More so, when you hire somebody, there may be a couple skill sets that you're looking for, but from a holistic standpoint of who that person is and what they bring, they're going to need to grow. They're going to need to improve. They're going to need to adjust. They're going to need to continue to show that they can adapt in various situations. And those things happen a lot throughout work situations. But just in life, when you experience something, when you have a conversation with a loved one, a conversation with just people out there on a day-to-day, when you go through a situation, when a challenge becomes present in your life, when you face that situation again, when you face that challenge again, have you adjusted in ways that would help you show up better? Or do you show up in a way to where it's no different than the way that you approached it last time? And that's not the best way necessarily, but it's the way you choose. And then we have those of you brothers and sisters out there that are growing in every way you can to glorify and honor God in what you do. You're continuing no matter what. If the situation is challenging, you continue to try to focus on the right things. If the people are having consistency in a way that's wrong, you continue to try to focus on the right things. And that isn't easy. And I appreciate you for those of you that are like that, that do that. Don't stop. Keep that going. Because we know, as brothers and sisters in Christ, that we are in a day and age, we've been there in different various ways throughout different times, to where people of faith, particularly from what I've noticed from people who follow and walk with Christ, are going to be one of the more, if not the more persecuted populations other people out there. And no matter how much people know, it still is the case. Still is the case. But you have to make sure that you continue to be focused on the right things. And that experience allows you to be wiser when you come across things. Because we've all stumbled, fell, done things that we shouldn't have done. Or tried our best and it just didn't work out. Right? Doesn't mean you had the wrong intentions. It just means that your intentions and what you had in your mind at that particular time wasn't what was needed from what was going on in that environment. Or maybe this wasn't preferred. So there's a lot of different things. But understanding where God has you in all that. Those experiences have taught me a lot of different things. And ultimately, it really just has helped me grow a greater appreciation for the things that God is trying to do in us and around us that we don't even see. I got this one life experience I want to share with y'all, since I'm talking about experiences, right? So, me and my wife were talking about it earlier, because it just crossed my mind. I'll tell you, it was back when I was wearing the uniform, when I was serving in the United States Air Force. And it was a day where, I was young and, well, I guess you can still consider me young, even though, like I mentioned before, these gray hairs are just sprouting up everywhere, y'all, I'll tell you. But, this is just one of those things to where I was late. I was running late to work. And we lived maybe about 15 minutes away from the base that I was stationed at the time. And to kind of set this up correctly, there was this road that led to the base that outside of maybe 2-3 turns, it was a straight shot to the base. And this road, once you got close to the base, because the closer you got to the base, you started to get into this park territory, but the road that went through it that led to the base, it had a pretty steep hill. And this day it happened to be raining. So I was sitting there on my way, rushing out the door, flooring it, to a degree. But not so much, because I still had to honor stop signs and so forth to get to where I was going. But once I got to that straight shot that went to the base, I'm sitting there, driving along. And just like it happens a lot of times, y'all, as soon as you got somewhere to be, there's something in front of you that is slowing you down. And that's what happened. I was sitting there going down the road, and there goes this big, oafy garbage truck that's sitting in my way. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I ain't got time for this. And to me at that moment, it was more important for me to get there than it was to be patient, to focus on my safety. As soon as I started to pull around that garbage truck, this was at the point to where the incline to that hill, a steep hill, started. And I was trying to, in my mind, as I was playing it out before I did it, thinking that I could just scoop around and get around that garbage truck before the hill started. So, with little time to think through it, I was on my way. But here's the problem. There was a yellow Corvette. I remember it like it was yesterday. He, she, whomever it was, that person was flooring. They were coming on me fast as I pulled around, and I was literally right next to the garbage truck. This person was just gunning it down the road. I, of course, was in a position to know whether they even considered tapping their brakes or not. But at that point, I tapped mine. I started to put my foot on my brakes, so to speak. And like I said, it was raining. I started skidding. And the skid, he wasn't too far away from me. So what really transpired is that I had a choice. I either go off into the ditch, into the side of the road, pray that everything would be okay, that I would be able to walk away from it, or I would hit that Corvette head on. I was for certain if I would hit that Corvette head on, that would have been it. It would have been no 20-year career. There would have been no beautiful daughter. That would have been a wrap. So, little time to think about it, right? I went off on the side of the road. And what I will tell you is that I thought these type of things just happened in movies, and what I felt would have been more significant accidents. But as soon as I made impact with the ditch, something happened with the vehicle, propelled it, it flipped, I don't know how many times, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. And then landed. And I'm sitting there. First, looking up, looking around, and glad that first and foremost, I opened my eyes. Then I'm doing a body check. Move my feet, move my hands, rotate my neck a little bit. And then I decide to exit the vehicle, try to exit the vehicle. By the way, this vehicle came back as a total loss. And I walked out of the vehicle. I remember it to this day. Guy in a green Jeep, uniform member as well, was walking my way. And of course, as a decent person would do, first question out of his mouth was, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, just some scratches and scrapes. I think I'm okay." And the thing that happened at that point was that I looked back and I looked at that vehicle. I said to myself, "God, you must have a plan for me. There must be something that I'm meant for. Because this experience wouldn't have happened in my life if there wasn't a reason for what I'm supposed to do in this life that I have not done yet. And I'm going to set out to do to honor you, to glorify you." Now, the other part of this is that from a driver perspective, best be for sure, I've never driven a vehicle more carefully since that very day. But one thing I also did, and this is important, trying to pass the garbage truck wasn't my mistake. Putting myself in a position to where I wasn't able to carefully assess the situation before I did, and not put my life at risk to show up in a certain place. So the other part of that too is making sure I did my part to not put myself in that position. And here's the thing with some of the people that are watching this. Sometimes we're so focused on what happens in experiences, we don't focus enough on how we put ourselves in the position to have those experiences, to not be able to see those experiences play out in a certain way. But with that certain way for us being focusing on honoring God. If my perspective would have been what it is today back then, I never would have been in that position. Never would have been in that position. Never would have had that happen as far as what's going on. Now, in the appropriate situations today, I'm not scared to pass a vehicle. I've done it. But I carefully assess the situation and make sure it wasn't, again, passing the vehicle that was the wrong thing to do. It was the way that I did it and how I set myself up by causing myself to feel like I needed to do it in the first place. That's the part of experiences that we miss sometimes. How do we set ourselves up in these situations to where our focus on God helps us see, feel, hear, and operate in a way that honors Him no matter what it is? It could be on the road. It could be at work. It could be in the home. No matter where you are. If you're not coming into and taking from your experiences in the right way, then the things that have happened, the things that could be detrimental to you, will have much more of a chance at being present in your life. You need to make sure the things that you are focused on, the things that you are doing in our day-to-day, and how you learn from them is connected to discernment. Proverbs 1:5 says this: let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let their discerning get guidance. So thank you for watching this video today. And I look forward to you watching another one that I'll put out here in the near future. God bless everyone.